This week, the media glommed onto a perennial favorite, the story of a homeless man who does the right thing and turns in a lost bag of money. But of course, it wasn't enough to leave it at that. Over the weekend, Glen James, who's been living in a homeless shelter for 8 years, found a bag stuffed with money and traveler's checks and turned it over to police.
James says he wouldn't have taken a penny because he's extremely religious and God always looks after him.
God and now the media.
A great follow-up to a story we told you yesterday.
The Follow, a fund soliciting online donations, has been established in Glen James' name, now said to be at over $130,000.
Sweet man.
A really, really sweet
Thanks
man.
for sharing that.
He may be, but we don't know anything about Glen James. It's reminiscent of a similar story the media pumped up 3 years ago. Ted Williams, the Ohio homeless man with a great voice.
Say something with that great radio voice.
When you're listening to nothing but the best of oldies, you're listening to Magic 98.9.
After his discovery, Williams went from roadside oddity to network darling to Dr. Phil's sob story in a matter of 2 weeks.
How about drinking?
I've had a drink.
Rochester, New York bus monitor Karen Klein is another one. A $100,000 fund was raised for her after she endured school bus taunting. The outpouring of sympathy was heartwarming, except no one ever asked her why she didn't do her job and take control of the situation. Which brings us back to Glen James.
Good man.
Good man.
Let's hope they are right.
And there's something condescending about this, that the media immediately embraces these people and feels sorry for them and puts them on a pedestal without knowing the slightest thing about their background, what they're doing there, what led to this situation. And I think it was commendable that the police chief gave him an honor for returning the money. That's one thing. But then to get behind him and saying these, the network anchor saying, what a sweet man, what a sweet man. They don't know. They don't know the first thing about him. And this is another example of where we forgive that kind of reporting because it's a do-good story and all that, but it's our obligation to find out what we're talking about. And then before we know it, these people, we've set them up with funds or we've given them a job as being, broadcasters. I think they're the voice of NECN, that guy Ted Williams is, and his life fell apart. The network got so involved. CBS had him do a reunion with his mother. They hadn't seen each other in 10 years, but they botched the whole thing. And, we start interfering and creating a news story where the first one was good enough.
Saying that he's a good man or a sweet man is definitely going too far. I think it'd be okay to say, great story. Because there is something, this man had more financial need than most of us, God willing, will ever experience, and he still chose to do the right thing. And that's great. I understand why people would want to cover that. But saying good man or sweet man is dangerous because, as you said, we don't know about him. And in addition, I hope that it turns out much better for Glen James than it did for Ted Williams, because he was clearly thrust into the limelight and given resources that he wasn't equipped to handle. So hopefully this will have a happier ending. We shall see.
Yeah, you put your finger on it. Condescending. I mean, there's just something icky about the coverage of this story. I would like to think that that it wouldn't be that unusual to return the backpack with the money in it. I don't think he's the only person who would do such a thing. I'd like to see the owner of to me, the ideal outcome for this would be, okay, the police commissioner recognizes him, the guy who got his backpack back gives him $1,000, and that's it, enough. This is all just excessive, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. And, I had enough almost as soon as it happened.
Well, I think that's the unanswered question. Where is the guy who got the $42,000, who left the bag in the first place? We haven't heard anything about him. Did he give him a buck or $1,000?
I think so.
Or whatever it was? But, I got to say, I think this is a great story. You don't have to call him a sweetheart. We have no idea. But when someone is homeless and they are in desperate straits for money, they don't have 2 cents to rub together, and they find $42,000 in cash, it's pretty, I think, counterintuitive that the guy would just run right back and hand it in, because obviously he has no money. If he had $42,000, he's going to be able to stay at a hotel for a while and maybe have a few good meals and all that. So I think the unusualness of that, I mean, maybe I'm being too cynical, but I think a lot of people would not, that are desperate for money, give back the $42,000. But we need to kind of follow up on it a little bit before we start talking about what a great guy, sweet guy. That's the condescending part. But homeless guy finds 42 grand and turns it in. I think that is a great story.
No, I do too. That part of it.
Me too. I totally agree. And the big question that wasn't answered in all of this coverage is what happened to that first guy?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I guess he never responded to him and said thank you or anything. That's what I wanted to know from the beginning. And that has never been addressed, which I think is interesting. Now, there's two things going on here. First of all, I don't think you can lump all of these cases together. I think that his case warrants further attention because a separate person, no one who lives in Boston, set up that fund. Glen James didn't set up the fund. This other guy from Virginia set up the fund because he wanted to. All right, well, we're journalists. That's a story. It is interesting that he was touched by this man for whatever reason and decided to set it up. It is a story that for whatever reason, people are giving their money to this fund for Glen James. I also think it's a story when people get too involved, and that was a problem with that Ted Williams. Newscasters got all involved in his life. It was horrible. That's not our business. Our business is to follow as the story evolves, and it's evolved to that point. I'm the kind of person that, cries at these stories. I cried at the Dairy Queen guy this morning, who took the $20 and yelled at the woman who took the $20 from the blind man. That's getting all kinds of press this morning. And now he's getting $20 from everybody. I cried at it, I'll say. But I just think that we have to, as in doing our jobs, I agree with you, we can follow where the story leads. But at the same time, recognize that the fact that some guy in Virginia who didn't know this man sets up a fund, I got to say, that's a story. It is. And that makes both of them kind of interesting people at this moment for whatever this other guy's motivations may be.